So first, I would like to introduce our next speaker who will give us this presentation. He is Manager for Global Conformity and Standardization of Charging Systems at Webasto. So ladies and gentlemen, let's have a warm welcome for Stefan Hirzinger.
Yeah, warm welcome from my side. Thanks for inviting us today. Unfortunately, originally it was planned to have Annalena Meyer, our Vice President for Charging in Europe, here for this presentation, and for health reasons she was not able to join us today. I'd like to apologize for that, of course, also on her behalf, and wish her, of course, all the best and quick get well. My name is Stefan Hirzinger, and as it was mentioned, I'm responsible for the conformity of all charging products from our VEBASTO group. I will show you later on some details about our products and what we do and who we are. Our topic today is customization versus standardization, and I'm going to talk to you and tell you some details about how we struggled and hopefully found a solution for that fight. But first of all, let's have a look on the current market development. I mean, what are the challenges? We have fundings or call it subsidies nearly all over Europe and in several other countries. For example, in Germany, you get subsidies for buying a car. Doesn't matter if it is a plug-in hybrid or a battery electric vehicle. You get subsidies for installing a private wall box. We've already seen hundreds of thousands of applications here. We also have subsidies for public charging devices, also more than, I think, 30,000 applications here, I was told. So, of course, that leads to, I would just call it sales boom. I mean, under us, everybody knows we're really facing a challenging time right now. Hands up the manufacturer of charging solutions who was, without a break, able to deliver this year. I think none of us was able to. That was really a challenge because of that significant sales boom. Of course, if there is a huge demand, just if it's only one country like Germany, many market participants appear and try to get a piece of the cake. You know what I mean? That always reminds me to the, I always call it gold digger situation we had 20 years ago in the photovoltaic industry. That every Chinese manufacturer in a garage started to produce solar modules, and now everybody starts to produce wall boxes and charging devices for the upcoming market of electromobility. And of course, Webasto wants to do or does, and that leads that you as a company, as a manufacturer, and I would call Webasto already as one of the world market leaders for charging solutions, to find your positioning in the market. What are you planning to offer? Which product types, which power ranges, for example? I'll come to that later on. And then it comes out, and that's our topic for now. That's the question, is it a fight between customization and standardization? Because on the one hand, you have the customization, that's important for individuality, to be flexible, to react on market developments, to react on customer needs, on customer demands. In general, you have to, individually or be able to individually design the products for your customers. Means the customer has a choice, I'll show you that later on, which functionality I want for my charging device, and depending on the country, of course, you have to be highly flexible here to supply all the countries and all the customers. And of course, you have to be able to react in a quick way, because there comes a new country asking for several payment possibilities, for example. That's a topic in Germany right now. But same in other countries, where new standards, new norms, new regulations or directives are coming up, and you have to respond quick to be or find your position in the market. On the other hand, you have the topic of standardization. Means, of course, you try to produce as many wall boxes, for example, from the same type, because that brings down your costs, of course. Means the portfolio should have a certain simplicity and to reach a high volume. Just a simple example, if you have 30 variants of your product, you probably produce 1,000 of each. If you have only 3, you're producing 10,000 of these 3 variants. Of course, that helps you to lower your costs, to get better prices for your components and things like that. Means focus on high volume production. That's important, just to reach cost effectiveness. And that's, of course, what the market and your customer asks for. Always the lowest price, of course, but with the full functionality, no doubt. Transparency is important, especially from an end user point of view. I tried to sort out the wallbox I need 2 years ago from one of our competitors. They had 35 variants. I was not able to even sort out what are the differences between these variants. And of course, that has nothing to do anymore with standardization. That kills you from a cost perspective, looking at the production. So that's what you have to solve. But first of all, let me tell you who or what is Webasto. I don't know if anybody in this room has heard about Webasto before. Webasto is a relatively old company, founded in 1901, means more than 120 years of tradition. Our headquarters is in Stockdorf, southwest of Munich. And we're one of the top 100 automotive suppliers globally. And we're 100% family owned. That's, from my personal perspective, a very important point. For the long-term view of the company itself. We have about 14,000 employees in more than 50 locations globally, and over 30 production sites all over the world. Turnover was 3.3 billion euros in 2020, and we have several, let me call them, business units. I'm showing here. I come back to that: heating systems, batteries, roof systems, and charging solutions. Charging solutions is the business unit where I'm working for, just to give you an idea what Webasto is doing. Our main business fields are roof systems. Probably you never heard that, because we're world market leader for roof systems. It could be just a single sunroof in a car. Could be a convertible roof, like you have in a cabriolet, for example. But you don't know us as a market leader here, because it doesn't say Webasto on that product. We're delivering to our OE customers just to the production line, and that's it. But there is Webasto behind. What you probably know is heating systems, because there is a retrofit market where you, and all of us, we are all end users in somehow, where you could buy a parking heater for your car. And we started, of course, decades in the past with fuel-operated heaters and also cooling system. That's probably where you know the brand Webasto from. And on the right side, there is the relatively new business unit or business field called eSolution. That's everything what has to do with electromobility. And Webasto decided, I think it was in 2015, when we decided to massively invest in that field. At that time, we pronounced about 600 million euros of investment to build up that business I'm showing you here. Means, on the one hand, electric operated heater. Just imagine if you're a world market leader for heating systems, for parking heaters, for combustion engine cars, of course. And now you have the change to electric mobility, and every electric car has a parking heater included automatically. That's serious. That's no longer a choice. Then you have to react, of course. That's why we developed high voltage electric heating systems for electric cars. For example, one of the famous German sports car manufacturers uses our 800 volt electric heating system. And don't forget, we also have the cooling department, where we could arrange a complete temperature management for battery systems, for example. Not only heating, but also cooling means, in general, have the control of the temperature of a battery. And that's a topic. You're not just heating the inside of the car for the passengers. If we're talking about battery electric vehicles, there's also a need for the right temperature of the battery. And that's another business unit that brings together the experience about climatization and heating with the battery production. We are producing batteries. We originally started some years ago with a standard battery, 35 kilowatt hours, mainly for last mile transportation, the typical ladder frame trucks like Sprinter or comparable commercial vehicles. We developed then individual packages for standard passenger cars, up to even stationary batteries we're producing right now. For example, a company located in Dresden, which is called SolarWatt. We are producing battery modules for their stationary batteries in combination with photovoltaic system. Just to give you an idea, and on the right side, there is the charging business, including, I would say, in the end, all charging solutions till 60, 66 kilowatts of power. Starting from what we internally call cord set, the official naming from the standardization is ICCPD, in-cable control and protective device. We're having single phase from 1.4 kilowatt single phase fixed cord solutions up to 3-phase 22 kilowatt solutions. We have fixed cords, or like you see on this picture, swappable grid plugs. Means that makes it easy for the driver to switch the plug depending on the country where he is. And of course, the colleague from the UK knows the left plug here. That's cord sets. That's a huge business. Development is mainly in California and produced. I'll come back later on to that, where it is needed. Then we have AC and DC wall boxes. Again, the whole range, I would say, between 7.4 up to 20 kilowatt AC and up to 66 kilowatt for DC wall boxes. We're talking about bidirectional DC wall boxes and whatever our customer needs. But Webasto is focusing on mass production. Means we're not talking about high-power chargers at the motorway, because the number is just too low for us to use our expertise in high quantity production. And of course, not to forget the digital solutions. That's quite important, or I would say that's getting more and more important. To have the fitting app, to have a cloud, to have a back end, whatever is needed. We just heard a lot about the new gold or the new oil or whatever you call it, data. And that's not only data of who is charging when and how quick or with which power, but also service for maintenance and comfort. That's important services. If there is a fault in the wall box, how to find out where does the fault come from. Did the car turn off the charging process or the wall box, or was it something else? And therefore, you need digital solutions, and that's what we offer. So you've already seen that's a variety of possibilities, what you could produce, how to bring it together, and to have all, if you come back to the basic functionality of a charging device, I wouldn't even call it wallbox, just charging device, you have to bring together the basic functionalities like energy transfer. Yeah? It sounds simple, but it's not, at least not always. Or communication, digital solutions, HMI, human-machine interface, housing, and customer-specific designs. That has to be brought together. Again, having the standardization in mind, reaching high numbers of produced communication boards, for example. And that's why we started already some years ago to set up a global modular product platform for charging devices. I just give you a few ideas about it. There are many, many features you could offer, or your customer asks for, or even a local requirement, a standard or something. I'm not talking about the different couplers for US and Europe and China, for example, but really features where the customer says, well, I need Bluetooth, or I need Wi-Fi, or I need both, or whatever. Again, here comes the flexibility in of customization. And of course, you want to offer for let me give you 2 examples. Wi-Fi, you have certain, I think it's several dozens of frequency bands used with Wi-Fi, 2.4 and 5 gigahertz, but you have to be aware of the global standards because there is a certain frequency band which is used for end user applications in one country and for the fire brigade in another, or worst case, military usage. So you have to be aware and you have to split these products, not to deliver the frequency open in an area where it is used for military usage, for example. The other hand is certification. Just a simple example, materials. In Europe, there are very often synthetic materials, means plastic used for housings. No problem, we have several materials which could be or could get a certification, no problem. But there are dozens of customers in the US. The US are more flammability focused than we are in Europe. And for that reason, they insist on, for example, a metal housing. So that's a complete different story, including a certification if you have a synthetic material or a metal housing for a certain country. And that's just to mention 2 examples for 2 special regions. So, what we did is set it up this platform and now being able to, on the one hand, do white labeling and custom designs, whatever the customer asks for B2B, of course, also B2C. I think we'll come back to that on the panel later on too. Means in most of the cases, I would say, just as an idea, 95%, you wouldn't recognize the housing as a Webasto product, and there is no Webasto on it, because that's just a brand of a supplier, of a utility, or of an OE on the product, and it's not saying Webasto. And we are able to customize all these wall boxes in a very high number, because following the platform strategy, for example, the COM board in the AC wall box for China is the same as the COM board for the AC and DC wall box in Europe, and probably the same, just as an idea, in some other countries. And that helps us to scale the production. And even if we're talking about customization, we're able to produce here very high volumes. And of course, the fulfillment of all functional and legal requirements, and that's mainly the job of my team and me, to find out all the requirements globally for all countries we're delivering our products or our customer asks for. Which requirements do we have to fulfill in Singapore, in Kuwait, or whatever? Europe is too simple, believe me. So that's something we can provide. And of course, that's what we worked on for years already. And the fourth example is the global footprint. No matter if you have a customer who asks you to produce where his production site is, for example, we have huge OE customers saying, well, we're producing that car in Mexico, so please provide us with a charging device from Mexico, for example, or at least North America, for several reasons. And as we have more than 30 production sites globally, and as you could see here, even for our charging solutions, we are able to supply the customers even from the region or the continent where he likes us to produce or where it is needed. Or there are several reasons then to choose where the certain product is produced. Okay, so in the end, that means for us or for me, there was originally for us, there was a fight, yes, but I think with that modular product platform, we managed to bring it together. So from my point of view, there is no loser, neither customization nor standardization. That's what we, from my point of view, did successfully. And our principles are, in general, premium. I mean, we had a lot of discussions with Webasto internal because a wall box is not an automotive product. But sorry to say, the automotive quality standards, from my point of view, there's space qualified, then is military, and then comes automotive, just from my personal experience. And that's our DNA, that's in our blood. We just can't go around, you know. So that's one reason why we're really talking about premium quality, even if it is not an automotive product. Well, we could discuss about ICCPDs. They are really in the car, driving around all day long and having this heavy temperature difference and things. Scalability is very important for us. As I mentioned, the modular structure is, from my point of view, one part of our success in that business, and the global setup, which enables us to not only be flexible and supply locally, but also to extend production capacities as it is needed for the market and for our customers. Yeah, and that's our setup I wanted to show you. And coming to the last chart, we were told to give a short outlook. What's the impression of Webasto? What's coming? And I just wrote down a few buzzwords here, what we're calculating with. Let me point out two. First of all, market consolidation. Again, remember what I call the gold digger feeling. We will have a significant market consolidation. Just last week, I heard about more than 10 new producers of charging devices here in Europe. Just in this single week, we will have a consolidation in, don't know, whoever knows, 3 or 4 years. We're very well prepared from my point of view. And autonomous driving is something we really prepare at Webasto. You remember, we're market leader for roof systems. So what we did, we developed a roof sensor module, means integrating the whole sensors you need, LiDAR, radar, whatever, stereo cameras, what is needed for autonomous driving. We integrated in the roof, what we call roof sensor module, as a system integrator. Because roof is our business, and nobody wants this. You remember the Google cars with like a hat, or in Germany we call it Warzenschwein. That's nothing people want, so we really prepare for autonomous driving. Also, just as a side, if we're talking about robotics, automated conductive charging, for example. That's also where we already developed a solution. Okay, so that's what I wanted to show you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Stefan. You may take a seat.
Yep.
Yeah, that's my seat. I like that one in the corner over here. So you can just sit over here, because now I'd like to introduce Well, as it turns out, we were supposed to have 2 additional people on this panel, but they couldn't make it, so I'm all the more happy to be welcoming the next 3 panelists. And what I didn't realize is that they are also actually going to do a little quick presentation, one after another, and then we'll get into our conversation. So first, it's my pleasure to introduce the Managing Director of DP4 from EWE Go. Let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Ilan Momber.
Is the mic on? No. Hello, hello?
We can hear you, yeah.
You can hear me?
We can all hear you. Just start speaking.
I think there, now, okay, all right. Here we go. Thank you for the kind introduction. Great to be here and to be part of this panel on customization and standardization. So thank you for the nice thoughts that you brought in your presentation. I'll try to answer or to respond to some of them. First of all, my name is Ilan Momber. I'm the Managing Director of Digitalprojekt 4 GmbH, DP4, in close collaboration with EWE Go. We're building digital products and digital services for the mass market of 2025. And that's the perspective I would like to bring here today. So a little bit less hardware focused, more focused on digital products and services, and that we need a lot of customization for these as well. But before I will say anything about that, I'd like to introduce to you the company that I'm representing here today, EWE Go. They have been involved with electric mobility for quite a long time already, compared to sort of the uptake of the vehicles here. They are, for those of you who don't know, a utility company from northwest Germany in the area of Oldenburg and Bremen, Lower Saxony. Since you gave the numbers for your company, I think they have 9,000 employees and around 5 to 6 billion turnover. They are also an operator of charging infrastructure. I believe they have more than 2,000 charging points under operation. And so you see they have a hardware portfolio, obviously, also to service use cases for charging at home, charging at work, and charging on the road in public spaces. But what I'd like to talk about is a digital product. And the example that I brought is billing at home, the billing service for charging at home. The scheme that you see here basically tries to describe the situation that you are a company car driver and you would like to charge at home. So on your private premise, in your household garage, or in a multi-dwelling home in a parking lot that's exactly identifiable as yours. And the idea here is that you incur costs at home, and these costs are subject to the tariff that you have at home as your normal retail electricity bill contract. And you would like to differentiate these costs from the rest of the costs of the household and get them reimbursed, let's say on a monthly basis, from your employer who owns the company car. So that's kind of what it looks like once it's all working on a day-to-day. But how does it look like when we are okay, I'll do this step by step, I guess. When we are setting it up, the company car, the company, so it's a B2B product, right? We're servicing a company, an enterprise that has employees, and these employees are driving company cars. And so once we sign the contract with this company, we're trying to collect money from one client and distribute to many, kind of a Robin Hood scheme, if you'd like. So we're signing a contract, we're closing the deal with the enterprise, B2B, and then we want those employees of the company who are authorized to use the service, obviously to sign up for their contact information, signing up for all the different data we need in order to reimburse, so bank details and so forth. We have a customer self-service portal for that. And then comes the pre-check, so a technician, a qualified technician that goes into your house and checks what's the actual situation there. I think there it's quite obvious what customization means, because the real world is messy and you find many different situations. Sometimes you need a lot of cables, sometimes you need to break through one wall, sometimes you need to break through 0 walls because it's a new building where there's already a cable tunnel ready and you need almost no cable. And then obviously the hardware installation. Now the point that I would like to get across to you is that you look at this, looks like a very straightforward service, but in reality it can be also quite messy, and different requirements coming from the company and from the employees. Depending on what the IT landscape looks like at the enterprise, you need to integrate with different systems, which we can all do. So there's a lot of customization involved in the real world. The next steps, just to finish this slide, are the employee receives the mobility card that we use to differentiate the charging processes that are for private use and for the company use, because the charging point is registered under private in the system. And then you can charge your car sort of hassle-free without any worries, and the whole billing process can start. Where in the company, the stakeholders involved are people in HR admin, maybe people in billing, so in controlling and billing, and obviously the fleet manager. And all these need to have full transparency and access to the right information. And believe me, in many different companies, many different systems, many different processes set up to do this, also for kind of payroll and salaries. And so, we bring something that works for all of those, but it's not a standardized product, it's a customization needed so that you can get the mass market for electric vehicles, also for B2B to C products. Yeah, that's it. That's what I brought. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. So I'm just trying to figure out if I have the right order, who's presenting next. So on my list, and director, let me know if this is correct. Or you can whisper in my ear who's next, just that I don't mix it up in the order of the slides. Whose slides are ready to go next? But whose? Okay, I can't hear, but I'll just guess that we're introducing the founder and CEO of Switch, EV. Let's hope it's the right person, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give a warm welcome to Mark Milton.
Oh, thanks.
That looks promising, Mark. It's your
that's the right one.
presentation. Yes.
Perfect.
Okay, we did it.
You all hear me well, I guess? Yeah?
Yeah.
Perfect. Wonderful. Thanks for the kind introduction. My name is Mark. I'm the founder and CEO of Switch. And we are here at Switch because the current state of the e-mobility industry is failing the EV drivers. Seamless EV charging is not yet a reality. I've been in this industry since 12 years now, and I came to understand that if you are really serious about impact, really serious about seamless EV charging, you have to think about holistic solutions. It's not enough to just tweak a little wheel in this whole interconnected system of services and actors. You have to provide a holistic approach from the charging station all the way to the charge point operator backend and beyond that. And we're here to help the industry achieve that. By 2030, we can expect more than 200 million chargers being installed worldwide. And we are quite confident that a fair share of these chargers will run our operating system, and a fair share of these charge point operators will use our software as a service-based system. So that in the end, the transition to a greener way of mobility will just be as easy as a simple switch. So when I thought about the challenges that we are facing as an industry currently, I wanted to focus on 4 topics here. First is plug and charge. When you think about it, plug and charge is a little bit like teenage sex. Everyone's talking about it, but if you dig deeper into it, hardly anyone has real hands-on experience, and almost no one has real products on the market. And the thing is, we are not talking about early adopters anymore. E-mobility is becoming a mass phenomenon now. And there's an ever-growing community of sophisticated EV drivers that are expecting a seamless experience. We had a great session yesterday when the topic was about what can the US learn from Europe and what can Europe learn from the US. And this journalist was talking about if you want the customers to switch to electric vehicles, you have to make it as easy as possible, right? Range anxiety is not really a topic anymore. There are so many cars coming to market that have a range of 300 kilometers and more. Hell, the Lucid Air has now broken a new record. I think they have a range of 820 kilometers now. So that's just crazy. So that's not an issue, but the customer is kind of confused and even fearing the situation that you have to download various apps, that you have to carry around RFID cards. If you keep up that mentality, then EV charging in the mass is not working. We need to make it super easy to use, very easy. And that's what plug and charge realizes. And we have a great demonstration outside with the first car manufacturers like Porsche with a Taycan. And I know that there's also the Mercedes EQS and Audi e-tron, the Ford Mach-E that can already do it. And other car manufacturers are, I think within the next 2 years, we will see a lot of them coming to market with that solution. So it's better make sure you're ready for it, and we at Switch can help you with it. Next topic is data security and data integrity. The more EVs that are connected to the charging infrastructure, which is a critical infrastructure, the more interesting it becomes as a target for hackers, right? And we don't want hackers to manipulate our charging infrastructure. So it's super important that we make sure that the communication between the car and the charging station on the one hand side and between the charging station and the backend system on the other hand side is really secure, that we use cryptographic key materials, digital signatures, digital certificates, and so on. And these protocols, ISO 15118 on the one hand side between car and charging station, and OCPP 201 between charging station and backend, are the ones that enable all this encrypted communication. Third topic is renewables and V2G. I mean, V2G is a very hot topic now. I made it was part of my PhD thesis back in 2009 and until 2014, where I was thinking about how we can integrate a car that is able to charge, but also feed energy back to the grid into an energy management system of a smart home. So that was a research topic 10 years ago, and finally it becomes a mass phenomenon, or everyone's talking about it. That's great to see. As the bulk of renewable and the bulk of energy generated comes from renewables, or more so over the next years. And electric cars can help to stabilize the grid by temporarily saving the energy or storing the energy in the car battery and giving it back to the grid when it's needed. So you don't have to shut off the wind farms because otherwise it would overload the grid. That's just insane, right? Last but not least, interconnected services. In a very fragmented e-mobility market, the challenge becomes that all these stakeholders and services need to talk to each other very seamlessly, and that you have a bulletproof foundation based on which you can innovate and build value-added services. And Switch can help you achieve that. So what do we provide? First of all, our clientele, our target audience, is the charging station manufacturers, and we take the software risk completely away from you. We provide a complete software stack of ISO 15118, which governs the communication between the charger and the electric vehicle, and OCPP 201, which is the newest protocol for the management of chargers on the other hand side. And we make it super easy for you to integrate our software stack into your charger for a very, very low price point. On the counterpart, we have our own charging station management system, which we call Sarah, that perfectly works together with Joseph, our firmware system on the charging station, for a really, really seamless experience. They are interoperable with other solutions that are speaking the right protocol, But for example, let me give you one example of why they work so great together. Right now, for a charge point operator, if something goes wrong between the car and the charging station when it comes to the 15.11.8 communication, they have no idea what is going wrong. There's no error code that you can display on a backend system. But with Joseph on the charger, we have the complete control of the communication to the car and to the backend, and we can visualize what's going on in this backend system, so the charge point operator at all times knows exactly what's going wrong if something's going wrong. Of course, the goal is that it's always an uptime and nothing goes wrong. And the third product is what we call Scotty, which is an interoperability testing tool for OCPP 201, which is the newest protocol that I mentioned to manage chargers. For those that do not yet use our protocols, they at least have a solution to test their implementation against a standardized test kit, so to say, to see whether their implementation of the charger or of the backend system is compliant to the official standard. And Scotty is also part of Sarah, which helps charge point operators to onboard a charger in such a way that they first have to run a suite of test cases and see once the test cases are passed, then you onboard a charger. Otherwise, you tell the charge point manufacturer to go home and do their homework. So this way you can reduce all the issues you have in your network. So I'm coming to an end. What's a quick history of where Switch is coming from? Basically, as I mentioned, I'm here in this industry since quite a while. In 2010, I joined the ISO 15118 standardization body, which is defining this communication between the car and the charger. And I have, in 2016, made it my mission to educate the industry on how this complex standard works, how it's going to be implemented, how it has to be implemented, what corner cases there are. But after 5 years of education, I became tired because I didn't see any solutions on the market. So I thought, let's take matters into our own hands and provide the software solutions ourselves to help the charge point operators, for example, reduce the risk so that they can focus on their USP. And now, last year, I founded a company in London. We are a London-based company. Used to be called V2G Clarity. Maybe some of you know that brand. Now we're called Switch. And I have a wonderful team of 21 people. All over our front-end, back-end testing. We are very much focused on user testing and user research. And great talent across embedded software engineers as well. And that's basically it. One thing I wanted to mention, as I mentioned, we are a lot focusing on user research because we want to build the best possible solution out there. And that is also tying into the conversation customization versus standardization. We need to use standards because that reduce risks, that reduce costs, but we also need to make sure that we build from the very beginning the solutions that the customers want. That's where the customization comes in. So if you are interested if you are a charge point operator or a field technician engineer, please speak to me, send me an email. Would love to include you in our user journey. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much. So, and we have one more quick presentation from the CEO and founder of EWE Global. Let's welcome Donald Hopper.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for that intro. I think we were asked, not to really talk too much about the company, so I have to, right? I will just say one little thing, and that's that we're all about customer experience. And basically, that's why I'd like to start by making a comparison, an analogy, right, between adopting new technology, in this case EVs, and falling in love. And I'd like you to picture yourself sort of sitting on your favorite armchair, right? And you're watching your favorite sort of series on the TV, and this person sort of walks in, rushes in, right? And they're eating this apple and speaking quite loudly, and you just stop watching your favorite program and you look at her and you think, wow, she looks so sexy, right? Eating that apple. And so 9 months go by, and the same scenario happens again. You're sitting on the sofa, you're watching your favorite TV series, right? This sound sort of muddles through and you're getting quite annoyed, and so you go to the kitchen and you find this same person after 9 months, because that's basically when this biochemical sort of reaction fades off, right? And when you fall in love. And you go and you storm into this kitchen and she's eating this apple and you say, please, can you just stop eating the apple, right? It's so annoying. And so I think we're in the same place at the moment in the EV industry. And basically I think that when a driver appears at a charging station and that's not working, up until now, they were thinking, okay, it doesn't work, but it doesn't matter because I love this technology. I know that it's going to sort of fail sometimes, and it's fine. I believe in it, right? So I'll just go to the next one. But we're right at that 9-month period, I think, where a driver turns up at the charging station, it doesn't work, and they're thinking, damn it, it's not working. What's going on? So I'm going to call, right? Because there's a number on that charger, and I'm going to call it, and I'm going to complain, but nobody answers. And you think, damn it, they don't care, right? And I think that's kind of where we are now, that we're thinking, okay, we've been focusing, and we all know this slide, on sort of adapting our solution and our technology to that sort of early adopter market. But we're starting to see that we're not ticking all the boxes, so we need to sort of think about scaling up, and doing so by focusing on sort of process innovation, right, and process optimization. And these things sort of feel like they've happened at a different time. And really, I think that when you ask yourself your question, do I need to sort of focus on, I suppose, standardizing or customizing, you're really answering this question, which is, how am I going to make the next billion euros, right? And you're thinking, am I going to sell 100,000 euros worth of product to 100 customers, or am I selling 100 euros worth of product to 100,000 customers, right? And depending on how you answer that question, you're going to customize or you're going to standardize, because you need to scale. But I think, and at EVA we believe that this doesn't need to happen sort of separately. We can do them together, right? They can run in parallel, but you're going to need to sort of focus on building, I think, an organization that can support sort of both strategies running together, and that you have the mission, the vision, the values, and that you have the why, and that you're sort of thinking, I need the right partners, right, to be able to do these things at the same time. And I think that's what our customers have found in EVA Global, right? A means to sort of think, how can I focus on being innovative and therefore run away from the effects of commoditizing my product, because that's what's going to happen most likely when you start standardizing. And so we're all a bit afraid of that. And then how can I sort of grow? Because it means that if I don't really scale and I don't focus on standardizing, I'm going to sort of always be going for that top sort of level in the market where people are prepared to pay that top dollar, right, for that sort of super differentiated service. And that's why I think, you know, that if we come together and we do standardize, but we don't forget that we need to innovate and that there is an ecosystem, right, that we can make sure that that driver stays in love with what we're offering, and that we keep sort of that fire burning. So that's about it from our side. No more about EVA, and that's just, I think, a reflection of where we are now and why I think we need to be able to sort of not differentiate between the two, but really run them in parallel.
Thank you very much. All right, so is it then true that we have to fear standardization as being something that's going to get in the way of innovation? Is that really what we're dealing with? Is it automatically that? Anyone want to volunteer their opinion on this?
Yeah, I think if it's in isolation, right? If you're only looking at standardizing, then yeah, you should be. Unless the market is so big, we're already like 10 years down the line where there's enough space for all of us, and then therefore I mean, at the end of the day, I think what you need to do is focus on price, you need to focus on customer experience, And I suppose you need to focus on being able to offer as much choice in the market as you can, right? But we're not there yet, so you can't just focus on standardizing already now. There's still enough time to sort of be innovative in the way that you're producing and presenting that product in the market.
Does everyone agree?
I think it's not an either or, it's an and.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
We need to have a solid foundation based on which we can then innovate. And a solid foundation is what standards provide. When it comes to at least the communication protocols, right? I mean, that's, of course, I'm biased, it's all my focus in my business, but once you have the solid foundation, the communication with the interoperability between all the different actors guaranteed, then you can actually start building the innovative value-added services and software products on top, which then can be modularized and customized. So it's definitely an and not an or.
You just can't ignore standardization because that is directly connected to price. So exactly, it has to be both or somewhere in between.
But how do you decide to what extent you want standardization to have that balance of still being flexible enough to continue to innovate and to continue to take customer needs into account, because those are obviously not static, right? Like customer needs change, as society changes and as habits change and as expectations change, and also as technology changes, the more we offer, the more they expect, and then they expect even more. So where is that sweet spot, and how does a company decide where that sweet spot is?
I think you need to do a lot of user research, right? It's always hard to anticipate what the user wants. I mean, everyone knows that famous quote that supposedly came from Ford. If I asked the user, then he wanted to have 10 more horses, but instead he built a car. So you always have to have that on your radar. What could be the next feature that the user wants? Or if you have to put yourself into the position of your potential client. Often that's what you forget. It's what you get out of sight. And you have to talk to the people that you think will become your future customers. Ask what they really need, what their pain points are. I mean, everyone who sets up a business, that's the essential question, right? Which pain points am I going to solve? So that's like the basis. You have to anticipate what the user needs. And then finding that sweet spot where you want to be modular or versatile or customizable, that's up to every business single decision, I think.
So what guidelines then do you take into account when you're trying to figure that out?
I would say the guideline is just experience. I wouldn't call it trail and fail, but in the end, that's the secret of a company, to decide at a certain point, will I do that or not? Customer comes up with a special feature, for example, face recognition in a wallbox. Then you somehow have to design that brings complexity in again. And you, at a certain point, have to decide, do I start development of a face recognition, means doing the construction for including a camera in the wallbox or not? Yeah, that in the end decides if you will be successful or not. This decision. So that's from my point of view, that's the whole secret. Yeah.
Mm. I suppose that if you look back, we perhaps felt alone in the sense that we had to innovate and we had to do everything on our own. We didn't have maybe the ecosystem that we have now. Maybe now there's a luxury of thinking you have partners out there, and there are companies out there that can help us sort of focus on remaining innovative, yet also find those efficiencies, right, that can be sort of implemented across the supply chain. And maybe that's the realization that wasn't possible before, and it goes back to that sort of billion-euro question, I think, and it's am I going to try and attack that sort of on my own and sort of be a jack of all trades, or am I really going to find sort of those right partnerships, right, that will allow us to remain nimble, always sort of learning and young?
You mentioned that we now have a very diverse ecosystem, that you don't have to do it alone. You can collaborate with other players and learn from one another and innovate together or standardize together. And that just makes me think about whether we can maybe even go outside of the EV ecosystem. I know in previous conferences there was the discussion of what can the EV industry learn from other sectors, if there's any kind of lessons that can be learned. I mean, certainly this is not the only sector that's grappling with this tricky balance of standardization versus customization. When you're trying to scale up, like how do you find the right balance of those things? So is there maybe some other sector that could serve as a model for the EV industry?
I think mobility is big enough. If you think about the customer journey again and that driver's journey, charging is not the only thing they're going to be doing. They're also going to be parking. They're going to be enjoying, food at their McDonald's, whatever it is. And so you need to start thinking about, particularly when you're offering services like an MSP does, what else can I add on top that actually sort of destroys those boundaries, that would sort of create a silo between an experience that starts and stops when you charge, but that really should encompass a lot more. And I think that's what's happening at the moment. People are able to look outside of EV as a sort of microcosm within a bigger industry and are starting to look at how you can learn from other actors and other players in the same sort of industry, right? There's still a lot of space there.
One obvious example of another industry that we need to look at is the telecommunications industry, right? Where you have roaming, which is ubiquitous and like everyone knows it. It's like you don't even think about it when you go to a different country. Since a few years, I don't know the exact year anymore, we don't even have roaming fees anymore in Europe. And we're not really there yet. We are getting there in Europe at least. I mean, America is a different topic, for example, but still, we have different approaches, different protocols, different networks. We're getting there, but we are still not there yet. And I think also any let's say, politics involved should really be kept out of this. As well, when it comes to, let's say, all this ensuring the security of the communications with the whole plug-and-charge ecosystem, the public key infrastructure, the so-called V2G root CA. There's also topics of who is going to be that independent role, who is independent enough so that no one feels a bit offended by who's going to be that central root of trust, sorry. And there's also, there's a lot of politics involved, and I think the less we think about politics and the more we think about just getting the work done for the EV driver, the faster we get there. And it's not yet in everyone's minds, I think.
Okay, so a few of you keep saying we're not there yet, but let's say we want to look down the road, again, theme of our conference, 2025, just looking 4 years down the road, where will we be then in terms of this choice between standardization or customization? How much further along will we be, and where do you see us then?
Well, personally, I think this whole topic of implementing the new standards will be solved by then. Everyone will have it one way or the other, and then we can start building a whole ecosystem of innovations based on top of that. Think of it like the analogy of an iOS app store. What if you could have a bulletproof foundation on the charging station itself, and you open it up via an app store so third parties can innovate based on top of the bulletproof foundation, implement their solutions, let's say a smart AI-based load management that is working on the controller or in the software in the cloud. You just upload your software to the app store, and then the operator says, yeah, I won't have that, and I want to download it to my charger. That's the future vision I'm working towards. And we want to provide this kind of app store, so we want to facilitate innovation so that others don't have to do the boring, hard work of implementing the standards, but finally there's an open ecosystem that everyone can jump into and chime into and help increase the user experience.
You know what? hopefully we'll never be there, right? Where we've realized we've standardized and everything is sorted, and 2025 comes and we found sort of the holy grail of EVs, right? Because that means that we stopped learning. It means that, I don't know, I feel like hopefully we have standardized, and at that point we realize that there is, again, more space for disruption, and that's what happens in markets. It's not a goal, right? I don't think it should be.
Well, I'm just saying, at least the bottom ground, the communication, the stable foundation needs to be there.
Right.
Otherwise, there's no room for innovation. I'm fully with you that we should never standardize everything, right?
No, standardize for industry, right? And then sort of customize to differentiate yourself.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, but the standardization for the whole industry is important from my point of view, because talking about the user experience, you were talking about that's important for the end users to understand. That's simple example, that's the coupler, and this one fits to all cars. We didn't have that for years already. I remember the time, I'm driving electric cars since 1989, and at that time we dreamed about having one standard for a plug, just to plug in the car.
Yes.
And so, first of all, I would say standardization from that point of view is important, but never lose the ideas.
The way I look at it is not so much a juxtaposition between standardization and customization, more that certain things need to be standardized, hardware, protocols, and these things are kind of the foundation on top of which we can innovate and we can. I mean, I bring the perspective of a certain digital product here, and that's not possible without the standardization that all you guys are doing, basically. And without sort of that foundation, we couldn't even build these products. And then with that product, we can also customize user experience, how you do onboarding processes, and so forth. So it's really what you said, Stefan. It's not an either or. It's not we're not in for a fight. There's actually no ring. There's no people in that ring to fight. It's something that works together very complementarily.
We have just a few more minutes. I don't know if anybody has a question or a comment for our panelists. We do. There we are. So somebody wrote in, OCPP v2 is incompatible to OCPP v1.6. 15118 does not support German calibration law, so the entire architecture is incompatible in and of itself. Do we need a complete new, really standardized architecture?
Well, it's right that the OCPP version 2.01, which is the current one, is not backwards compatible to 1.6 for various reasons. It's unfortunate, but they had to break with it to really enable this new great features, such as a device model, where you have so many more features of monitoring and updating your charging station. But it's, as far as I understand, a bulletproof foundation now for future versions of that protocol. The second statement, I don't know how this person came to this conclusion. I don't think it's right. There's no reason why 15.11.8 should oppose calibration law.
And from a hardware perspective, talking about OCPP, where is the problem? If your product is able to update over the air, the customer could still choose later on which OCPP version he needs for his special case.
Any other questions from our audience? So I guess the conclusion of our panel is that standardization, customization do not have to be opposed to one another. Rather, they need to go hand in hand, and that we also have to have the courage sometimes to detach ourselves from some standards if we notice that they're hindering the innovation, and then also have the wisdom to know when. Right. All right. I'm going to just say, I think that's a nice way to end our conversation. I know people are waiting to have a lunch break. This lunch break is going to be a bit shorter, but first, please, a very warm round of applause for our panelists. Thank you very much. It was a kind of a challenging technical discussion.